Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, we get to do a show now about a player who is already a legend before he even starts his first spring practice at Ohio State. We're always cautious about putting too much expectations on these guys as they're just showing up on campus, but these were expectations that were sort of baked in, at least in terms of legendariness, if that's a word, which I'm pretty sure it's not.
It is not. Yes, already a legend, Tom. We are here to talk about Legend Bey, Ohio State incoming running back, receiver, athlete, former Texas quarterback. And so we're going to start a series on some of the incoming freshmen and what to expect from them this year. And the reason I wanted to start with Legend Bey is not alphabetical or anything like that. It's something that Ryan Day said on his radio show this last Friday, whenever it was, this past Friday. Here, let me read this to you, Tom. This is Ryan Day, Ohio State head coach, talking about Legend Bey. Legend Bey is a guy who is dynamite. I kind of call him maybe the poor man's Tyreek Hill. I mean, he can go. When you watch him last year play quarterback in Texas, just 5 touchdown games, 6 touchdown games, just running around and making guys miss. He's lightning in a bottle, so he can do a bunch of different things for us. Excited to see him in the spring and kind of figure out how he can fit into the offense. Now, I will say when he was talking about Legend Bey, he was talking about him amongst the running backs. So I think that's the first question that gets answered. Now, how long that question stays answered, we will see. But Tom, when you see the head coach who doesn't often like talking about true freshmen say stuff like that, what goes through your mind? And don't say Urban Meyer and Dontre Wilson.
Well, I really was a little confused because he's comparing him to Tyreek Hill, who rather famously did not play running back, and he's talking about him with the running back. So it's like, well, I'm not sure any additional clarity has been provided here in terms of where he's actually going to slot in on this offense. But, and it might not just be on offense, Tony. We can get to the special teams portion of this a little later on, because that feels like that might be a real opportunity as well. But when coaches are willing to talk about guys in a certain way, as early as Ryan Day is talking about him, that moves the needle for me a little bit in terms of coaches are always very, very reticent. We're the same way, where we don't want to put unrealistic expectations on something because, we never want to comp anyone to Jeremiah Smith. You never want to comp anyone to Orlando Pace. You never want to comp a safety to Caleb Downs, and because that's just not a realistic expectation. Now, Ryan Day said the poor man's Tyreek Hill, but as soon as the words Tyreek Hill come out of his mouth, he knows everything that happens before the words Tyreek Hill, that's all gone. No one heard anything except the name Tyreek Hill. And, Tyreek Hill was an incredibly dynamic player at the NFL level for years and years and years and years. He has 145 career games, 11,000 career receiving yards, 83 touchdowns in the NFL. So, if he's the poor man's Tyreek Hill, I guess you just take those numbers and just port those right over to college, and then that's the new expectation, right? That's even that's a little that's a little reckless too. So, but just the fact that he's willing to say that stuff already, that tells you, there's certain guys. Jeremiah Smith, like Ryan Day was not hiding how badly he wanted Jeremiah Smith when Jeremiah Smith was a high school recruit and we were in there for signing day. That was pretty clear. When coaches are talking about the guys this way, this early, that really tells you, there are ways that they can talk about guys where it's just like, we'll see. He's going to compete. He's going to fight hard. He's going to, that's one thing. This is different. And you can watch the high school highlights and it's like, man, yeah, there's definitely something there. That tells you that Ryan Day thinks not only is there something there, there's something there that's going to translate somewhat early to the college level.
And Ohio State it's been a while, I think, since they've done this, where you bring in a quarterback and you make them a running back or a receiver. Was Cam Martinez the last one maybe that they went and made into a defensive back? You had Jalen Marshall before that. That was a successful transition. Here you've got a guy that, Texas high school football, 10 500 meter, 10 2, 10 7, like all in that range. Sometimes it's wind aided, whatever. It's not wind aided when he's making 9 defenders on a Texas high school football field miss, which is something that translates. But getting him to be able to be a running back or be a wide receiver, I sometimes think that it's easier to transition to running back for a running quarterback than it is to transition to receiver, except for the fact that he's like 5'11", 180. So how does that work? And in terms of, the show is about expectations of in 2026 for Legend Bey. Boy, we've not seen a 180, 185 pound running back do anything really as a true freshman since like Antonio Pittman in 2004 or so. And so I don't know really that there's much you can expect. Could we see something that we've seen, say, from, I think the expectation, like the Isaiah West last year, I think is probably too much. 59 carries. The year before, you had James Peoples, 49 carries as true freshman. I feel like that's probably more than I am expecting. However, Tom, if they find a way, because you just saw what Miami was able to do with Malachi Toney, and I'm not saying that Legend Bey is Malachi Toney, but you see different ways that these players have been used. And Ohio State has tried to have this guy over the years, whether it was Mookie Cooper or Caleb Brown. They have tried to have this guy. This is the next iteration of that, and there's still going to be more development for him. But Caleb Brown came to Ohio State as a running back, trying to transition to receiver. You've got a running quarterback here, starting out presumably at running back, and then also having a decent opportunity this spring to show what he can do. How much can this spring essentially spring him forward?
Yeah, this spring is actually kind of interesting because one of the things that Day mentioned on his show was that both Bo Jackson and Isaiah West are going to be out this spring. Just nothing, no long-term concerns, just sort of cleanup surgery kind of stuff. But what that means is there's going to be more reps available in that running back room for guys to come in and, show what they can do. So, I'm glad you brought up Malachi Toney's name because I was trying to think, how can I say Malachi Toney's name without actually making people think the next Malachi Toney? Because I don't think that's you look at Malachi Toney's numbers this year and he's not going to do that, and that's okay. But I think in terms of the way they used Malachi Toney in a bunch of different ways, where high school quarterback, he can throw the football. You saw them get him the ball in the backfield. You saw them throw him the ball, and it was a lot of throwing him the ball near the line of scrimmage and then pushing the do something cool button and then seeing what happens after that. And I think you could see some of that. I'm not expecting him to hit those carry numbers because I'm not expecting him to be a running back in the regular running back rotation this year because just at his size, I'm sure everyone's thinking, well, durability and how much can he run between the tackles? And yeah, that's certainly part of it. But also, if he's 180 pounds, how's the blitz pickup going to be? Probably not great. And how is he going to do in terms of picking up the pass pro? That's going to probably take a little while. So I don't think I'm expecting a ton in terms of, he's going to have 50 carries, he's going to have, say, 75 carries, whatever it is. I think you might have, let's measure this in wow plays this year. Where and wow plays might be in the fourth quarter against Kent State, and that's one of the wow plays. But you might see between offense and special teams, you might see 2 to 3 like, oh wow, and then this time next year, everyone's talking about Legend Bey. That's the guy that all the fans are excited to see, and finally they've got those bums ahead of him off the depth chart. Ship that Jeremiah Smith off to the NFL. We got to it's Legend Bey time. That'll be the sort of the tenor of the conversation. I'm sure not probably those exact words, but you're going to have probably a few wow moments. And here's the thing: sometimes wow moments turn into, then the guy takes that next step and turns into consistent wow moments. And sometimes you have guys who, you can go through the list and it's like, wow, Rajay Burns, a pick six in his first career. Oh man, that's incredible. And then was never heard from again. And Cam Martinez had some moments like that. And Demario
McCall.
Demario Hall? No, Demario
McCall.
McCall. Yes, Demario McCall. Yes, had some wow moments, and then it never really translated. But I think you're going to see some wow moments from him on offense and potentially also on special teams because, we just did a show. They just brought in a new special teams coordinator, and I think there's going to be a renewed emphasis on maybe trying to do more on special teams. That may be an area where he is, if they feel they can trust him to catch the ball and hang on to the ball, that may be an opportunity to be a kick returner, be a punt returner, whatever it is, and make an impact there.
I feel like that's probably his best path towards not redshirting, because frankly, you're still learning a new position. You're still transitioning. You can still get your 4 games in and develop and not waste a year trying to become something that you are not yet. So I do expect him. I think as of this moment, before I see him in the spring, I do expect him to redshirt. But if he could become a dynamic part of the special teams, then we've seen that with other programs where it's just like, okay, you have 800 return yards and you're not used all that much on offense because this is your specialty and the offense is covered. But also, if you are that electric, why aren't you finding him some room on offense? And yet, also, you've got Turbo Rogers, who is a similar, in terms of a smaller back who we'll finally get to see this spring. Got to see him a little bit in fall camp, and frankly, he looked pretty darn good in fall camp. So his role, Legend Bey's role, in terms of all-purpose back, third down back, might be occupied a little bit by other players. But, boy, the way Ryan Day talks about him, it's if he can show it this year, fine. I don't think you're wasting him by, say he plays 9 games and catches 14 passes and, runs the ball for 120 yards. Like, I don't view that as a wasted season because there's going to be more coming. But I do expect him to redshirt. And if he doesn't, Tom, then I think that says a lot to already how quickly he has advanced in his progression and his development.
Right, because they don't want to burn that year unless they're really going to use him. So if they feel like they're going to use him, and if you can really help on special teams and you're not ready on offense, they will still use you if they're going to use you on special teams. But that's if he doesn't redshirt this year, that is I think my default guess would be better than 50-50 that he takes a redshirt. If he doesn't, then that's another data point to go with Ryan Day calling him the poor man's Tyreek Hill. That would be another data point to suggest, okay, remember when everyone got real excited when this guy ended up at Ohio State? Yeah, that's why.
Well, and also just so everybody knows, the title of the show, which you already know, but by reading it and seeing it, we're going to go with, is Legend Bey the next Malachi Toney? That was suggested by some of Tom's comments. We've discussed it. I don't think he is at this point. But those words were sort of spoken during the show, so now I have no choice but to put that as the title.
Always responsible. Tony Gerdeman, always willing to share the credit whenever the credit is not wanted.
So there you go. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that thumbs up. We'd appreciate it. If you listen, that's also great. 5-star rating and review, appreciate it as well. And, of course, you can continue to find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you all later.